We are 1 year into Trump's second term, and let's be honest, it's almost hard to keep track of how much has changed. Not because nothing has happened, but because the pace of change has been so absolutely relentless. One executive order turns into 10 executive orders, and one policy shift turns into 5. It's been fast, decisive, and completely disorienting, especially if all you've ever heard are empty promises from politicians that don't even get done in 4 years what Trump has managed to get done in 1 year into his term. In just 12 months, Trump has proved that a lot of what Americans have been told were impossible is not actually impossible at all. The border could be enforced, executive authority could be used instead of outsourced to bureaucrats, federal agencies could be challenged instead of protected, peace through strength could be restored, deals could be made and not just talked about endlessly while nothing has moved. On top of that, we've seen sweeping legislative action, regulatory rollbacks, domestic manufacturing incentives, policy shifts, major changes to foreign policy posture, cultural executive orders that actually make sense again and are common sense for the greater good of the people, and a cabinet that looks like it was actually hired to do the job instead of check diversity boxes and audition for cable news gigs. And maybe the most underrated change of all is the fact that we don't have a president anymore who falls up the stairs of Air Force One, falls asleep at global summits, or needs to be escorted away from the microphone like a lost grandpa at Costco. The bar was low, but after years of embarrassment and confusion, basic competence turns out to matter a lot more than we were told. And that's the part that makes people uncomfortable. Because once you see how much can change and how quickly it can change, once excuses disappear because leadership is decisive and determined, you start asking questions that no one wants to answer. Why were we told that these things were unrealistic? What policies were kept in place because they worked, and which ones survived only because no one else wanted to challenge them? And what else has the government been pretending is too complicated when really it's just inconvenient or maybe not in the best interests of themselves? But that raises a harder question. When this much changes this fast, which of these wins actually matters most, and which ones quietly reshape the country in ways people haven't fully absorbed yet? And that's the tea, you guys. Before we jump in, if you like these conversations, make sure that you're subscribed to the show. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, please follow the show and give us a rating. And if you have questions, topic ideas, or you just want to talk to us or give us feedback on the show or ask us more questions, make sure that you're following us on socials, and you can also email us. Our socials will be linked in the episode description below, and our email will also be listed in there as well. Thank you, guys. And a new feature on our show, make sure you stick around till the end. We're going to start answering some of our critics' questions that we receive on socials or emails, and we'll do it for everyone to listen to here because I think it's important that we all talk about differing opinions and opposing views. That's what this show is all about. So instead of listing everything that Trump's accomplished, because quite frankly, that would be extremely boring and super long, what we're going to do instead is discuss a few of the decisions and key changes that have changed things across this country within Trump's term 2 that have quietly rewired how the country has operated, and most of them barely get explained beyond a headline because that's just what the media does. So if you only know the talking points, you don't actually know what happened. And what better place to start than the one piece of legislation that quietly touches everything, the big, beautiful bill.
It's the one big, beautiful bill.
The one big, beautiful bill. And people either love the name or they hate it, or they roll their eyes at it, but very few people actually understand what's inside of it, including me, I'll admit. But I know that you know, Dad. So, Dad, at a high level, most people, when they hear big, beautiful bill, they think of no tax on tips and the no tax on overtime. And those are real wins. But that's kind of where the conversations and the headlines stop. So, outside of those two big headlines, what else is in this bill?
Okay, so instead of extending his tax cuts from his first term, they legislatively made them permanent, so the tax structure stays the same. It'll take a president with the vote of Congress to undo the tax rate changes now. They're permanent. They were set to sunset at the end of this year. Besides the no tax on tips and no tax on Social Security for seniors, also you can take the interest of your car loan if it's U.S. made and use that as a write-off. The interest is a write-off. It extended or increased the SALT deductions for a lot of people not for your middle class. I
What's
mean,
salt deductions?
state and local tax. So a
Oh.
lot of the high tax states like New York, California, Connecticut, their property taxes might be not 5 and 10 or 15,000 like Michigan. They could be 30, 40,000. So it upped the ceiling to 40,000 for those people. But
Mm-hmm.
there was an income cutoff. It wasn't for the rich people. It was people who were middle class and upper middle class. So instead of capping their state taxes at a $10,000 write-off, if they're paying 35,000 in state taxes, they get the whole $35,000 write-off, which is sizable for somebody. This isn't for poor people, but an upper middle class family who might be making, I don't know, 300,000 a year, getting a $30,000 write-off does bring their tax bill down quite a bit. You also had it stripped out the tax benefits for windmills and the alternate energy. It
Oh,
got rid of that, which is good.
and the EVs.
Yeah, it got rid of that because too much money was being applied to that and not producing. And this kind of makes the fossil fuel industry more competitive again. I know people hate big oil, but everyone who hates big oil is drinking water out of their water bottle, drives their cars, charges their cell phone, their tablets, their
Or takes their
computers,
pride.
takes their private jet. Everyone who
Yeah.
badmouths fossil fuels, that put them at a disadvantage. However slight, it did put them at a disadvantage
Yeah.
against all this money being poured in needlessly into these alternative energy sources that everyone says they love, but nobody uses. But it's a little virtue signaling for the liberals to say, look at this, and all those liberals are jet setting across the country or sailing in their yachts. So it
Yeah.
got rid of that tax break for the alternative energy. Also, people said was going to hurt the poor people in rural America was the Medicaid cuts. Basically, what it did is stripped funding from Medicaid from the federal level,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really not a bad idea. It put work requirements on there. So if you're just not working for years or whatever, if you're a 28-year-old healthy male and you're out of work for 6 months, it's basically telling you go get a job. And if you can't get a job, make the attempt to get a job. If you make the attempt and you still can't get a job, sign up for a class, do something to qualify for the Medicaid. So they're
Mm-hmm.
making somebody make the effort to get the freebie. So the Medicaid money that's being cut, people said people are going to lose their health and everything's going to fall apart. What's going to happen is the state's going to get less money. The state still is responsible for Medicaid. So the state just has to tighten their budgets. And actually, it's the beauty of a federated system of states. Why should the whole tax structure nationally be focused where California gets more money in New York? Give them less money and make them pay for Medicaid out of their state budgets. Let them cut some of their waste, like the train to nowhere in California.
Oh,
Okay, let
the bullet
let
train.
Tim Waltz in Minnesota stop giving money out to kids that don't exist, to daycare centers that don't exist. Let them take some of that money and put it into Medicaid. That's the beauty of
Or
the.
non-EMT
I
companies.
mean,
That's the new one.
the non, yeah. So that's the beauty of a federated system of states that people don't probably think about that often. I mean, sharing the cost to a certain degree is fine, but sharing the cost completely is BS. It's the liberal communist Democratic Party wish list. No, you know what? If Tim Walz wants to give money to the Somali population to send back to Boko Haram or whatever group is in Somalia, I'm sorry, that's Nigeria, then let him answer to his citizens about the Medicaid cuts.
Mm-hmm.
Or stop giving money to Somalia and put the money into Medicaid.
Yeah.
So this kind of forces states who are wasting
Wasting
money
money.
elsewhere to say, you know what, we got to turn inwards here and maybe do our little bit of homework and a little bit of fair spending. And one last thing it cut was SNAP benefits. Sounds cruel. Kids are going hungry, and a little Johnny and Susie will starve to death. No, they're cutting the money in the same principle with Medicaid. Let the states pick up the difference and also let the states administer it. Why should the federal government pay for this administration of these benefits for certain states? States got to be more competitive.
Yeah.
And that's just the bottom line. And you know what happens when states are competitive? Some aren't. That's the beauty of our country. States that aren't competitive, that can't manage themselves, they lose population, like
Mm-hmm.
California is losing population. States that do it properly, like the free state of Florida, they get more people coming in and they
Yeah.
manage it properly. So
Florida's
that's
bumping.
Florida's killing it. So that's the
I want to
beauty of
move
the.
to Florida.
That's why it's actually should be called one big gorgeous bill, but I'll settle for Donald's beautiful
Okay.
bill.
So the federal government now with this bill, they're no longer issuing SNAP benefits at all anymore?
No, they are just they cut it. They're
Because
shifting
I
some of the burden to the states. It should be.
Oh, okay. Because yeah, I remember, like, the government shut down, like, later or
Well, that was over
after,
the vote of
and
not getting it
yeah,
passed.
but then SNAP benefits got cut from that as well, so people are like, "Oh, people are gonna go starving."
Right. From the federal dollars. The states still,
Oh, the state still does that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just a big game. It's both sides do it. It's, who's going to look bad at what time, but that's
Okay.
that's the one big beautiful bill. That's his big piece of legislation.
So
But
that
there's other great things he's done in his first year.
Yes, there is, but I do wanna bring up a question from one of our listeners because I think it's a fair question, and honestly, I kind of agree with it, and I think a lot of people are probably thinking about it. How does the big beautiful bill make sense when we already have dangerously high national debt, and if tax cuts reduce government revenue, and the idea is that GDP growth makes up for it, how does that math actually work?
That's a great question. The math doesn't work. It's Washington, D.C. That's a great comment by somebody.
Yeah,
Even Donald Trump is a big spender,
yeah.
like any politician. So to answer that question, GDP should make up for losing some of the tax. The tax cuts spur economic growth, which increases GDP, which
Mhm.
hopefully creates more jobs, which in turn creates a bigger tax base if there's more jobs. So if you lose taxes on this end, you hope to pick it up over here. But it never works out that way in Washington, Republican or Democrat. When they
Mhm.
see extra revenues coming in, they're like a kid who just got a bigger allowance and is heading to the candy store.
Yeah.
That's not going to work. But the only way to truly get rid of debt, I don't care which party it is, it's the American citizens who have to make the hard choices. Do we want to keep funding Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security? Cool. I mean, it comes down.
How can we make those choices?
They're going to have to not run politicians out of Washington who say we want to cut the budget down to bare bones, almost to austerity measures, where we know what the party's over. But that day's coming. So some generation is going to be stuck with it. I mean, just look at, and I mentioned this to you before, not on here, but if you took a gold coin, a $20 gold piece in
Mhm.
1910 or 1920,
Yeah.
okay, you
Mhm.
could take that and go to the bank and get $20 in cash. Okay. And that $20 gold piece in 1910 or 1920 would buy you not a suit like this. This isn't expensive. It
Yeah.
would buy you a suit, a tie,
Like a
a
nice one.
shirt, a belt, socks, and a pair of nice shoes, all for that $20 gold piece, which was a $20 bill.
Now it'll cost you for a nice
It
suit,
would
it'll be
cost
like
you, but it would,
5 grand.
well, let's say that same outfit.
Yeah.
If you had an ounce of gold right now, a
Mhm.
$20 gold piece, which is a 1 ounce piece of gold, it's worth about 4,600 now. You could take that gold piece, go to that same upscale store, and buy that same outfit with the gold piece, but you couldn't with the $20 bill. In 1920, the $20 bill and the $20 gold piece was identical in purchasing power.
Okay.
Today, it would take that gold piece, that 1 ounce, to get what I bought in 1920. The $20 bill wouldn't get me the pair of socks. So that's thank you to Washington, D.C., spending constantly. So Donald Trump's not going to cure that. The Republican Party's not going to cure that. It's going to take, unfortunately, an economic meltdown, a cataclysmic event that's going to rock everybody's life. Hopefully, it doesn't happen. Hopefully, this game of economics they're playing, but no, this bill does not answer that person's question. It's a great question. It's not going to stop the deficit spending.
But no, nothing
But
would really.
nothing would. It may, though, it may stop the growth of the spending, which is another Washington red herring. Sometimes when spending growth is growing at 18% annually,
Mm.
and then a president comes in, like say Trump or Bush or Reagan, and the growth of spending only grows by 10%, what does that politician say? I've cut spending.
Yeah.
No, they didn't. They just cut the growth of spending. That's Washington linguistics, mind games.
Yeah.
And as far as that comment is perfect. It's not going to solve a lot of it, but it cuts the growth of spending and it creates efficiency
Mm.
and it puts some of the onus back on the states who are forced by state constitutions to balance their budget. And that's what we should be doing. Force these issues back to the states and get the federal government out of all this stuff. That would then fix the deficit problem.
Who was the last president that we had? Yeah, where we had a balanced budget.
Bill Clinton. But
Shut up.
I mean, I'll
No
give
way.
him his credit, but
Yeah,
he only did it.
Bill Clinton
No,
wasn't
wait,
that bad.
no, wait. He only did it dragging and screaming because the real genius behind that, I know the liberals will be mad, was none other than
Newt
Newt
Gingrich.
Gingrich.
Yeah, the Speaker of the
Clinton was
House.
going like this with his spending. Gingrich took over the House and he dragged him, and then Clinton couldn't wait to take all the credit with his big smile and say, "Look at me!" And
I balanced the budget, yeah.
exactly.
Um, and Bill Clinton wasn't that bad. I mean,
In today's world, even
I'd rather have Bill Clinton as my president than Joe Biden.
absolutely. In
Yeah.
today's world, Clinton would be probably not that welcome if he ran. Now, I know he changes to stay popular, but if he
Yeah.
would run on his 1992 platform,
Mm-hmm.
he would never be. He would never get the Democratic nomination.
Right.
And John Kennedy, he would be called a conservative, right-wing, fascist Republican in today's world.
Yeah. Um,
But they love to hold him up as though Kennedy was a Democrat. Not in today's world. He would be. I can't speak for him, but everybody can speak for him.
yeah.
He would be a conservative Republican.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what's interesting is that this idea of leverage using policy to change behavior didn't just show up in the economy, it also showed up in how the US dealt with the rest of the world this year. Because one of the biggest changes from the first year wasn't just here in the US, it was all over the world. It's kind of wild how quickly the tone has changed for the US on the foreign policy front. Shout out to Marco Rubio. Not that the world has suddenly became more peaceful, but I mean, I guess technically speaking, Trump's ended what, 8 wars, which is kind of
Yeah.
incredible. But the U.S. has stopped feeling like a global laughing stock, and I think that's thanks to a lot of the foreign policy wins we've seen this year. Besides the fact that we don't have Sleepy Joe as our president, what do you think the key changes in how the U.S. carried itself are that made other countries take us seriously now?
Well, I think Trump had a big advantage of he was president prior. So there was bifurcated differences. The world saw how Trump acted the first term.
Mm-hmm.
They saw how Biden acted. I mean, the first term, don't forget, Soleimani
Yeah.
was riding in a car and probably hear a missile coming down right down on him. El-Baghdadi was chased down by soldiers and dogs in a tunnel and was shot. So everyone knew him coming in, what was going to happen. I mean, it's kind of like when Reagan was elected, and the moment he was sworn in, Iran released all the American hostages,
Mm-hmm.
because they didn't want to take a chance with what he might do to them.
Yeah.
So there's always that perception of the leader coming in. But Trump had even a better entrance in the second term because he had a first term. It was easier for him, even more so than Reagan, who had not served previously, but his reputation preceded him. Not only did Trump's reputation precede him, his first presidency preceded him.
Yeah.
So it was easier for him to put things into line right away, I think,
Mm-hmm.
than, Biden, who was basically asleep at the wheel.
Yeah.
I don't even think he knew he was in front of the wheel, but
Seriously though, do you ever just like think about sometimes like how was that guy in our president? Like I just don't understand.
I'll maybe anger everybody. He stole the election.
Okay, but besides that, like, how did he survive as the leader of the free world when he was literally falling asleep at
Because I don't believe he was the president. I think there was other people who stole the election and they ran the show, and he was just there as a figurehead.
to each their own? But anyways, what's been your favorite foreign policy move this year, personally?
The most recent one, Venezuela.
Why? That's an interesting one. Can you talk about that? Because there's been a lot of pushback on that.
We didn't invade. It was a lawfare. It was a legal operation that was carried out by the Justice Department with the military enforcing it. Okay, the reason I liked it so much, it wasn't 4,000 miles away in the Middle East. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't in Europe. You worried about Ukraine and Europe. It was worried about our own backyard. And if you want to call it a military operation, which it was an operation, not an invasion, it was to directly benefit our hemisphere.
Mm-hmm.
It was to let China know, stay out of Venezuela. It was to let Russia know, stay out of Venezuela. It was to put Cuba on notice, take your little communist asses back to Cuba and
Mm-hmm.
stay right there, or we're going to take care of you too.
Mm-hmm.
It's not aggressive warmongering. It was a statement that has been around for a long time, the Monroe Doctrine. Well, now it's called the Donroe Doctrine, but which I think is awesome.
What is the Monroe Doctrine?
It basically is like we're going to exercise our authority in this hemisphere, in the Western Hemisphere, to make sure that we're safe, we're not intimidated, we're not invaded, we're not at the mercy of the rest of the world. Basically, it's simply as this. You own a house in a few acres, it's looking after your acres first, not your neighbors 40 miles away.
Okay.
And you know what? Maduro was nothing but a drug dealer. And I think what's going to come out sooner or later is that That's where a lot of the technology was for the biggest theft in the world, the 2020 election. That's where the computer servers
Explain
are.
that to people.
There's a lot of people who think, not just think, even so much as Elon Musk, which will really piss people off, that,
Which
well,
Elon Musk, by the way, the night of the 2024 election, he
yes, I know where you're, he
he
stopped
stopped fraud
in
because
Serbia and Venezuela with
yes,
his technology.
yeah, Elon Musk is a genius, and he actually saved the
He
2024
did.
election.
He did.
Yeah,
It was, they didn't know how it was going to go either.
no,
As much as everybody knew Trump would get the votes,
yeah,
they did not know. And
if it
it
would be
was,
stolen.
and they used, well, I don't know if it was Starlink or whatever,
Hmm.
but Elon Musk, under the direction actually of Susie Wiles, he was made aware. And they didn't know if his technology was going to work, whatever he did with Starlink, whatever they did.
Hmm.
I'm not a computer person, but they stopped massive stealing. That was
Yeah,
carried out through Serbia and through Venezuela, I believe.
Elon Musk saved the
He
country.
did.
He
He bought
literally
X.
did.
He bought X.
He did.
He changed free, he brought free speech back.
Yeah.
And if it's true, we don't know for 100%, probably saved the 2024 election.
I think it's true from what
Yeah,
I've
so do
read
I.
and what I've seen. But anyways, explain to people the election thing within Venezuela.
I'm not a tech person, but somehow the servers were picking up the data and they were able to flip the votes into the machines,
Because
the Dominion machines, right?
Dominion machines were manufactured in Venezuela.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Oh,
I
I
don't,
thought that that's what I read.
and it could be. I don't know if I just know
I'm
that
actually gonna look it up
I
right now.
just know that the Dominion machines had backdoor access, and that access was coming from either Venezuela or Serbia. Now, you're not going to see this in the national media because they would have to then go back and say the election was stolen. And as much as that's an old story and it shouldn't matter, I think it matters tremendously. And not
Resources.
just the 2020 election. This has been that's been a hotbed, and accusations have been made for many elections going back 20 years.
Oh, okay. I know you said you won't hear it from the mainstream media, obviously, but like, where have you read this? If people wanted to go find
You're going
where
to go
that.
to naturalnews.com. You're going to go to infowars.com. You're going to go to RAV, Steve
Hmm.
Bannon. You know, those type,
Yeah,
the conservative media, which they're going to accuse. Well, I'm sorry, I'm supposed to listen to the liberal media.
yeah.
So, I mean,
Right. Okay. Thanks for giving us your favorite foreign policy move. I think one other to celebrate, though, too, is the Gaza peace deal. I think that was pretty incredible, even though I think
yeah.
there's still some hostility over
Oh, yeah,
there.
of course.
There always has been,
Yeah.
but I think it was still pretty incredible, and no one ever thought that anyone could do
Oh,
that.
no, the other action's been good. I just think
Yeah.
our own hemisphere is where we should focus.
Yes, no, I agree. I agree. So when do you think Maduro will be prosecuted, just out of curiosity?
Well, will he be prosecuted or will he sing like a bird and prove that all the election meddling did happen?
Yeah,
We'll
that'll be
see.
interesting. And the funny thing is like the day after he got arrested and brought over to the United States, Trump started posting on Truth
About the
Social
election.
all 2020 stolen election
Yep.
videos and stuff. So I thought that was pretty
Yeah.
interesting.
No, it
Nothing
isn't.
with Trump is a coincidence. I'm convinced like he has a way of talking to us
Yes. And the liberals
in a
don't get it.
way.
They get angry. If you listen to where he's going
Yeah,
sometimes,
he's very calculated.
he's
Yeah.
extremely calculated. People think he's old. He doesn't. No,
No.
I would actually just listen and then see what he
Trump's
does.
sharper than I am
He
at
is.
80 then
Yeah.
yeah. But it's crazy. Okay, well, I guess let's move on to more our side of the world. So, one of the other things that Trump has done this year, and some of the loudest reactions we have seen from the left and the media, weren't about the economy or foreign policy. They were more so cultural. I mean, don't get me wrong, they were freaking out about those things too, but they've been very loud about the actions that Trump has taken to end DEI, mandates in hiring, and going back to merit, and then ending biological men competing in women's sports, ending transgender ideology in the military, all that stuff.
All great stuff.
Yeah, basically the stuff that forces institutions to stop pretending that words don't mean anything.
Right.
But why do these issues in particular just cause absolute meltdowns from everyone?
When you hate somebody as much as they hate Trump, anything he proposes sends them into a meltdown.
Yeah,
That's first and foremost. And let's face it, once again, I'll go back to the useful idiot analogy. These people are not educated. Sadly, they're indoctrinated. And when
yeah,
you're indoctrinated, it becomes hardcore. You can't let go of it. When you're educated, you can say, I was wrong about that.
yeah,
I didn't know that. That's good to know. When you're indoctrinated, subjective truth is pumped into you that it is just hardcore and you cannot let go of it. Because think about it. Everything that they're against, Forget 2 or 3 years ago, even 10 years ago, a few months ago was radical ideas. And to be that radical and to have that strong a feeling about something, you do not want to be wrong. And anyone who's going to change that policy, you're going to have a hatred for, and you're going to react the way they do, which is
Mm-hmm.
crazy. They are crazy. They are mentally unstable
They
because
are.
indoctrination is completely different than education. And indoctrination will breed radical people.
Where do these people get indoctrinated at? Besides, like the schools and stuff, but
Hollywood comes from the media,
so what
and it
they're
comes from the
consuming.
schools. It's what they're consuming on social media.
And maybe they don't have like
And
a home
also,
life
and
that.
also, it's easier to be indoctrinated than it is to be educated. Indoctrinated, you don't have to think. You're just told what to believe as a truth. And it's
Uh-huh.
usually something popular. It's usually something to be on the side of the oppressed because that makes you feel virtuous.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can virtue signal and you start to believe you're a good person.
Yeah.
And what the sad part is, you're not virtuous, and the only thing you're signaling is that you're indoctrinated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but it becomes so much part of you, and it's intellectual laziness. It
Mm-hmm.
takes a lot to read a few books and to really study the issue, and you know what? To look at the conservative news, the liberal news, the
Mm-hmm.
independent news sites, and try to see what little kernel of truth that they all seem to agree on. You start with that, and then you
Mm-hmm.
start building the rest of the story. But these people are intellectually lazy, and now they're ignorant, and the next step is useful idiots. That's what
Yeah.
they are. And then I'm not being mean. Ignorant isn't being stupid. Ignorant is just unaware of the facts.
Yeah.
When you're indoctrinated, you're ignorant.
Yeah. It's funny because like a lot of like their comebacks to arguments is like you're not educated or whatever,
No,
and
and the
it's
thing
just
is,
like,
then that's the sad
and it's
part
like,
because
how do you know?
the colleges give you a piece of paper, and you think
Yeah.
you were educated, you were only indoctrinated. I
Yeah.
mean, just this recent story about Yale University had zero conservatives in the entire staff faculty.
Yeah.
How does a conservative ever get into that faculty now? Because it's the faculty who lets people in.
Yeah.
So
And how do you even come out with any bipartisan views?
you can't.
You
It's
can't.
impossible.
Yeah. So that's not education, that's indoctrination. Now, unless you're going there for like a science degree or
Right.
something. But even
Right.
then, now, like, I remember when I was in college, because I had a bachelor's of science, but now I don't even think getting a science degree from a university is safe because they're changing science around. They weren't doing it at the time that I was in college, but
Right.
like when I was in college and I was studying science, I was like, oh, I'm not going to experience like the liberal professors because it's science. What are they going to do with that? But now they're even taking over that
Oh yeah.
field. So
I
it's
mean,
just
I
crazy.
was watching a few months ago after Charlie Kirk was assassinated. You know, they show us short clips of students debating him, and this was an economics student. The student was going on about Keynesian economics, which was the Democrat playbook.
Mm-hmm.
And Charlie Kirk asked him about Hayek, and he didn't know who Hayek was. And then he asked him about Adam Smith. He didn't know. So they're not even teaching them the other side. You can say you got educated because you knew about Keynesian economics.
Mm-hmm.
That's indoctrinated. You have to have both sides of the issue to say you're
Yeah.
actually educated. I mean, I'm a conservative. I don't want to read just conservative news stuff. I
Yeah.
want to see both sides so I can make a rational decision and say which policy has worked.
Which is what this podcast is about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Talking
so
about both sides. Yeah.
right. Unfortunately, that's where we're at on that.
Yeah. Okay. And in that instinct to shut down questions instead of answer them didn't stop with culture. It's been baked into health and policy for a long time. In year one of Trump term two, health policy has shifted in ways that would have been unthinkable previously, which is great. Maha. Scrutiny of food dyes and seed oils. You have updates to nutrition guidance and the food pyramid, re-examining and defining childhood vaccine schedules, more transparency around autism and pregnancy, and then a real focus on chronic disease instead of just managing symptoms. Nothing radical, just asking questions and following science. So these are all really good things, but is there anything out of this like that purely survives because it works regardless of who's in power, or will we forever be at the stage where Trump did it, so it's going to automatically be undid?
I think the only way for it to avoid that is Marco Rubio or J.D. Vance win the next election.
Yeah.
Whoever runs, whoever the nominee is,
Yeah.
because I think the next president will come in and they will just strip everything out and turn it all back upside down.
Yeah.
I really do. I think you need 2 or 3 election wins
Yeah.
of the presidency staying in conservative, normal hands versus handing it back over to the Communist Party.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
because then there will be so much that they can't
absolutely,
do.
because just because Trump did it, it
Yeah.
needs to kind of saturate actually
Into the parties.
into the both parties. It needs to be inculcated into society that they start to realize, okay, things aren't bad. Um, Parents can decide with their doctor what the vaccine schedule, how many they want. Um, you know what? Doritos don't taste all that bad with this coloring and fake dyes out of it.
Yeah.
I'm actually feeling healthier. We're not as an obese, fat, stupid country as much as we used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm guilty of it. You know, I mean, so
Yeah.
I think it has to sink in more than just 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Because I think the hatred for Trump carries over to the hatred for Kennedy. You know, if you're associated with Trump, you're hated, and they'll try to undo it.
Yeah.
But I think it's done great things. I mean,
It's amazing. Like
it's
I don't it's common sense. Not it's
exactly
not common sense. I mean it's science, but it's like it's common sense how he goes about it. It's like he's
right,
looking at the science. Like what have we been doing for the past
right.
however many
50
years?
years, yeah.
Yeah. And who started this? So I hope that survives because I think that's one of the things that I'm particularly happy about. And I think it's also one of the things that got him over the finish line because a lot of moms were really into that. But now I want to go to like one of the last sections here before we answer some of our critics' questions. I think the economy is the hardest place for people to stay patient. And I knew it would be going into this election and going into this win of Trump. But I think that this is the case because some of the biggest benefits Trump is setting up right now don't show up immediately and they take time for us to feel. And nowhere is that more misunderstood than tariffs. For a lot of people, tariffs sound like higher prices, trade wars, or something that didn't work before, but we didn't always think this way, and that's where I think we got lost. Reintroducing tariffs has been one of those policies where the short term pain is obvious, and the long term payoff takes patience. Prices can move, supply chains can get disrupted, but companies have to adjust. But the entire point is what happens after that adjustment. So talk to us about tariffs, and I think this is something that the media, it's very unfair, and if people actually were educated on tariffs, we would understand
Right.
what Trump is doing here a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for the tariffs, not just because Trump. I mean, we used to survive on tariffs as a nation. I mean, the income tax didn't come around. Well, Lincoln put an income tax during the Civil War, but then
Hmm.
it really didn't come back again until like 1914, 1917, somewhere around World War One, Woodrow
Yeah.
Wilson. Um, so tariffs, yes. The argument, okay, first of all, go back to Liberation Day when he first announced the tariffs last year. Stock market panic. CNBC said we're the president always doing the economy's going to collapse, inflation's going to be skyrocketing.
Hmm.
And then the market came back. Inflation kept trending down, not to where we want it to be, but it kept coming down from Biden's highs. And the end of the world didn't come economically. I didn't pay, twice the price for something that was imported from another country. There was a big panic because let's face it, a lot of corporations had a lot at stake in seeing these tariffs being put on. They don't want it. A lot of other countries had a lot at stake. So it was a massive media blitz, political blitz, cultural blitz against Trump doing the tariffs. And you know what? He's got stones because I don't know any politician. Reagan's always been my favorite, at least in my lifetime. I
Hmm.
don't think he would have been able to handle what Trump's been had thrown at him. And you know what? He keeps pushing this through. And if he gets mad at another country, he throws a 10%, 20% penalty tariff on them. People say, well, prices are going to go up. Let the market work. Because let's face
Yeah.
it, if I'm an importer and somebody from China is sending me a product that costs $1, okay, who pays that, say, 20% tariff? Now it's $1.20. I pay it. I mean, the critics were right about that. The importer pays
Yeah.
it. China doesn't pay it. I'm importing that product. I pay it. So how am I going to get that 20 cents back? I'm going to charge it to the consumer, right? That was the default position in the panic position.
Hmm.
What happens, though, in reality? China knows that I may not be able to import as many. So instead of charging me $1 for that product, they might charge me 94 cents. Eat a little bit of it.
Hmm.
I might realize I got to stay competitive with someone who's making the same product in the US. I still want to undercut their price. So instead of charging the $1.20, China just took 6 cents off of it. I'm going to give 10 cents off of it.
Hmm.
So now the cost didn't really become $1.20. It became
Hmm.
about $1.04 or $1.06.
Hmm.
In some products, the exporter, whether it be China, Vietnam, Taiwan, England, France, there are some companies that say delivery on demand paid for, which means I get it at the same price. They eat it on their own because they have competitive advantages that they'll exercise to keep their product that they're trying to sell in this country competitive. And if they can't, and if that product becomes expensive, guess what? Somebody in this country will then make it cheaper, which then creates manufacturing base.
Hmm.
So I think tariffs are genius.
Yeah.
And I'm proudly admit I'm a MAGA person,
Mm-hmm.
but this isn't all Trump. There's a Bob Lightshouser guy, his name is, and Peter Navarro. These were the two guys behind the tariffs,
Mm-hmm.
and they've really pushed Trump in the right direction on this.
Yeah.
And I think he's got countries coming to him making all kinds of deals. He said it. They'll come to me and they'll make deals. And guess what happened?
They did.
They came here and they made
Because they had
deals.
no choice.
And they invested what, 18 or 20 trillion now in this country?
Yeah.
So instead of having to export it and have somebody pay a tariff to import it,
They're building
it right
plants
there.
here. Yeah.
So
Which creates more jobs for
exactly,
us. Yeah.
which creates a bigger tax revenue to that previous concern.
Yeah.
So is it the answer for no, but it's the step in the right direction. Instead of offshoring our jobs, like we've done since Bill Clinton put us in the World Trade Organization or brought China into it. For a change, I don't know why people despise this man so much. You don't gotta like his personality. You don't
Yeah.
gotta like his way his comments he makes.
Yeah.
I love it. He trolls them to death.
I know.
They're not smart enough to figure out they're being trolled, but that's
Yeah.
okay. He's doing all this. He's not getting rich. He's already rich.
Yeah.
So he's doing this for the benefit, but your hatred.
And I think he enjoys it.
Oh, he enjoys the
Yeah.
shit out of it.
Yeah.
He knows they're never going to like him.
Yeah.
So you might as well just troll them, but still do what's right for this country.
Yeah, and he's already done everything else in life. Like he's built successful businesses and all of that. So before we get into the outro of our episode to prepare us for I would like you to answer a question from a critic on our last episode. So
Okay.
you said in our last episode, Dad, if you guys listened, go back and listen to it. You had asked, would these people rather have protesters live in their neighborhood, or would they rather have ICE agents live in their neighborhood?
right.
What would they feel safer around, essentially?
Right.
And someone made a comment back to this and they said, personally, I'd much rather live amongst people who have genuine care for their community versus poorly trained ICE agents that are getting backlash from other law enforcement officers who find them to be deeply incompetent. I live in a community full of immigrants now and have never felt safer. I certainly wouldn't feel safer with an ICE agent near me. Please look up the crime stats of undocumented immigrants versus citizens, and then look up the stats about DV and other violence among law enforcement officers.
So whoever that is implying that undocumented immigrants commit less crimes than U.S. citizens?
Yes.
Okay. So there's an example of a useful idiot, okay? But thank you for contacting us. So it shouldn't be that hard. You're contacting us.
Yeah,
That's
we
great.
want people to contact us.
we're
We
not-
want opposing views.
No, we're not going to agree, but that's not an educated reply. That's an indoctrinated reply. And here's the story. If someone says undocumented immigrants have a lower crime rate, statistically, yes. Now, there's the old saying, figures don't lie, but liars sure do figure. And this is a perfect example of that. This is somebody lying about the figures because the system's lying about the figures because they know there's useful idiots out there that'll accept those figures. So this is an easy answer. 3 situations. Number 1, they charge from conservatives that these illegal aliens always commit crimes, right? That's what we say as conservatives. Okay, so what do they come back and say? Well, they have a lower crime rate than the U.S. citizens. Well, first of all, take all the sanctuary cities, Boston, New York, Chicago, L.A., San Fran, all the big population centers are all sanctuary cities. When a crime gets committed by, say, an illegal alien, okay, that immigration status does not go on the police report. So if there is, it does not go on. There is no immigration status of that crime on the report. So let's say Chicago has 500 murders a year, New York 500, LA 500, San Fran 5. Go through all the big cities, okay?
Yeah.
Boston, all these sanctuary cities. Those murders, those rapes, those robberies all get recorded, but they don't get applied to the illegal aliens because they don't put status on that report.
Citizenship status.
So the federal stats then take all those crime numbers and they apply it per capita to who? The U.S. citizens. So the crimes are committed by the illegals, but yet they get counted towards as being committed by U.S. citizens. So that skews the number for U.S. citizens upwards and drives their numbers downwards. Number 2, when we say illegal immigrants, okay, there's different factions. So when other cities, not even sanctuary cities, count, if somebody is raped, okay, by a lawful person.
A lawful U.S. citizen?
No. This is where language means that you change the language, you change the debate. Okay? A lawful person, that doesn't get counted.
What's a lawful person?
A lawful person was changed when Biden opened up the borders. I catch you at the border, okay? and I just give you a court date 5 years from now for an immigration judge, because that's what he did, because it was
Yeah.
so backed up. You go into the interior of the country, okay?
Okay.
You go into the interior of the country and you commit a crime. You're considered a lawful person by statistics. You're not considered an illegal anymore, even though they just changed the wording.
Oh.
So when Trump was president the first time, you come across the border, you're
Mm-hmm.
counted as an illegal. You go commit a crime, that crime gets reported as an illegal committed it. You come across when Biden's president,
Mm-hmm.
you're given a court date, you're sent to the interior of the country. You commit a crime, that crime gets dumped into the U.S. aggregate number for lawful citizens. You're
Oh.
not a citizen, so you have now two ways they're dumping those numbers away from the illegals
Mm-hmm.
and either towards or not counting towards U.S. citizens.
Okay.
Okay, so it's all now temporary protected status, like all the Somalis, all this fraud they're committing. Well, that won't be considered illegal alien crimes. That'll be considered temporary protected status. That gets washed away from the illegal crime stats.
Mm-hmm.
So that comment might be well meaning, but is totally indoctrinated and uneducated.
Mm-hmm.
The numbers are being skewed against the U.S. citizen. Now, here's the difference between an indoctrinated answer and an educated answer. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not that smart, but I'm not indoctrinated.
Yeah.
I won't say with certain U.S. citizens commit higher or lower. I say for certain illegals commit a lot of crimes.
Yeah.
This person seems to think they're educated, but it shows that they're indoctrinated because they state that the illegals have a lower crime rate.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not the case because that person doesn't know the actual way the numbers are counted.
Yeah.
I'm not making a claim that U.S. citizens are higher or lower. I'm just saying we don't know. Why don't we know? Because all the sanctuary cities and states have skewed the numbers and made such a mess of it. Has
Mm-hmm.
created chaos, which is another attempt by communists to create chaos, to break the system down. And you get useful idiots who cheer on the breaking down of the system, and they don't even know it's their own system that's breaking down.
Yeah.
So to that person, thank you for contacting us, but do some homework.
All right. That's what we do here. We're always open to those different views, but we're always going to respond to them. So, anyways, so yes, a lot has changed this year. The border was enforced, foreign leaders stopped laughing at us and instead have started being frightened of us. Cultural insanity has finally met a hard no. And if you've been watching, you know something else too. When real changes happen and when real pressure is actually applied, the reaction is loud. Media meltdowns, endless lawsuits, and nonstop outrage, which is exactly how you know that change has been made. But there are a few places where none of that has happened. No outrage, no media meltdowns, and no resistance at all. Not because nothing was there, but because the fight hasn't reached it yet. See, corruption doesn't panic when it's exposed. It stalls, it hides in agencies, it hides in processes, and it hides behind the words ongoing review. And if you think that's an accident, it's not, because some of the biggest problems in corruption in this country didn't start this year. They've been here for many years, but only recently did they become impossible to ignore. They don't get better with time, they don't fade away. They don't survive by waiting out the clock. If the pressure doesn't finally get applied soon, it never will. And the uncomfortable truth is the system is betting that there are a few places that no one will push. So that's where we're going next. Make sure you're subscribed. You don't want to miss part 2.